Okay, guys, so we're going to give this another shot. This video didn't work last week. I want to briefly go over our PowerPoint for the 100 Years' War. Okay, so we've talked about the Magna Carta, but I want to get into the 100 Years' War, which is a famous war that lasts, well, actually over 100 years between England and France. Okay. Now, first of all, here we have a map, which is mainly of France. And we could see during the 100 Years' War, in the red are the areas controlled by England. So England, for time during the war, actually has control of Paris and most of northern France, as well as the southwest corner, this region called Bordeaux. And the area controlled by the King of France is reduced to this blue area. So what you have to remember is that the kings of England are actually descended from nobles from France. Okay, so that's important in this. All right, so 100 Years' War, how it starts. Okay, so in 1328, the King of France dies. All right, he doesn't have an obvious heir. He doesn't have a son to take up the throne for him. So there are nobles from both France and England that claim that they should have the throne of France. They should be king. Remember, some of the English nobles going back are actually descended from French families. Okay, but it's been a couple hundred years. All right, but the end result is there's this big disagreement, and England invades France, and they fight for over 100 years. All right, here we go. Here's Edward III. He's king of England. He's sort of, because this war takes place over 100 years, it takes place over several generations, but he's the first king to invade. Here, oops. All right. Here you can see his coat of arms. So the English have some success early on in the war. That's why they're able to get control of so much French territory, including Paris. The English famously, their troops, the most important troops at this point on the battlefield become the bowmen over the knights, their swords and shields. And the English used the longbow, which is more of this generic looking bow right here. And the French use this crossbow. Advantages to the crossbow are that it doesn't take as much training to learn how to use it. That's the primary advantage. But the longbow, if a longbowman is well trained and it takes years, he is much more effective. It's more accurate, and they're able to fire at a higher rate. So the English longbow gives England a big advantage in most of the early battles. All right, so like the Battle of Crequi, the Battle of Agincourt, England ends up being victorious and taking a lot of French territory. All right. So basically what happens is the King of England says, all right, well, now I'm King of France too, especially after they won those early battles. But later on, the French start to beat them back, all right? And there's a certain advantage the French have. They're fighting on their own territory, so the general population around them is more supportive of them, more willing to give them food and supplies. They don't have to move as far to get troops to the battlefield. So they have a certain advantage, and later on in the war, they start to win victories. And they rallied around a very important figure known as Joan of Arc, who was actually a female teenager who becomes a leader in the French military. So remember, it started in 1328. In 1453, France wins the 100 Years' War. I know it's actually over 100 years, but that's what they call it. There's actually some years in between where they're not fighting, but for most of those 100, you know, some years they're at war with each other. And we're going to dive more into Joan of Arc tomorrow. End result, the government in both England and France changed. Okay. Parliament's power increases because the king has to go to them to get money to fight the war. So because he's going to them asking for things, they're saying, well, you need to do some stuff for us. So Parliament sort of gains an ability to negotiate with the king more. Conversely, on the French side, the French kings get more power because the French nobles really got behind them and were willing to support them. So the English throne kind of weakens and the French throne kind of strengthens. End result, France retains control of France. The King of England doesn't control England. Although for several hundred years, he's going to claim the King of England will also claim to be the King of France. All right, guys.